Hi everyone, welcome to another video, a slightly different video for me this time because it's still about film and focuses on film, but it's about film soundtracks, and particularly British film soundtracks from the early part of the 80s, from 1980 right up to 1985. Now, in 1985, there was a release, which you can see here, called Filmtracks, and it celebrated British Film Year, which took place that year. And Filmtracks was a subsidiary of the London record label. And what it was a sampler from various soundtrack albums available for British film soundtracks. They were showcasing certain cues from the films, and they were all available as separate releases. Now, some films are quite large, like the Oscar-winning Gandhi and A Passage to India, and some were quite small, like The Honorary Consul and Water. So I'm going to take you through it now, cue by cue. Etude. Now that was from Roland Joffe's The Killing Fields. It's the soundtrack to the film by Virgin multi-instrumentalist Mike Oldfield. Now this track that you're hearing is building layer by layer, as is his style. The Killing Fields tells the story of the journalist and his colleague Dith Pran in Phnom Penh during the incursion by the Khmer Rouge, and they tried to get him out of Cambodia under a press ID, but that failed, and it left his colleague trapped and subject to torture in the famous Killing Fields under the Pol Pot regime. He eventually did get him back to the US. Dr. Hein Essengor played Dith Pran in the film, and the brilliant Sam Waterston played Sidney Schanberg, the American journalist, who fought tirelessly to get him his freedom. It's a superb film and a great score for it by Mike Oldfield. And Roland Joffe also directed The Mission, and that is an equally brilliant score by Ennio Morricone. Morricone, of course, is a whole video in itself. Paul McCartney wrote the theme from The Honorary Consul. Now, this is based on the Graham Greene novel, and it was directed by John Mackenzie. Now, the score for this film itself was composed by Stanley Myers, but the theme is played by the famous guitarist John Williams. Now, that's not to be confused with the composer, John Williams, of course. I'm not really sure if it's so McCartney-esque though. Classical guitarist John Williams' version of Paul McCartney's instrumental title theme for The Honorary Consul was officially released as a 7-inch single in a picture bag by Island Records on December the 19th of that year. Now, Paul McCartney's theme for The Honorary Consul, wow, what a lot of thought went into that one. And Paul's involvement with the picture, of course, stems from his friendship that he had with John Mackenzie, the director of the film, who, as you know, or may remember, also directed his famous video promo for Take It Away from his Tug of War album, June 1982. How would you really know that, to be honest? I'm a bit of a Paul McCartney nut, as you can maybe tell. Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence from 1983 was directed by Nagisha Oshima and it starred David Bowie and Ryuichi Sakamoto. Now the music for this, of course, was composed by Ryuichi Sakamoto, and David Sylvian combined forces with Ryuichi Sakamoto in a vocal version of the theme called Forbidden Colours, and that did very well in the UK singles charts. And Nagisha Oshima had also directed the highly controversial In the Realm of the Senses in 1976, heavily censored because of its graphic sexual scenes. Oh, what a theme. The main title theme from Chariots of Fire, composed by Vangelis, of course, I'm not going to pronounce his full name, directed by Hugh Hudson and starring Ben Cross and Ian Charleson. It's the race of two British sprinters vying for gold medals at the Paris 1924 Olympics. And the highly competitive nature, of course, of the athletes involved. One who had strong religious convictions and the other who just wanted to succeed. There's that amazing scene, I remember, of them running around the quadrangle, and the race along the beach makes me just want to stick it on and watch it all over again. Now the theme, of course, was excellent, as the whole score was too. It's been used by many shows championing or sports achievement, particularly focusing in those shows. It had a screenplay by Colin Welland, and it heralded the return of British cinema to the forefront of the international scene, with its taking of the Best Picture Oscar, Original Score for Vangelis, Best Screenplay, Best Costume Design in the 1982 Oscars. And I still remember Colin Welland's speech, and here it is.
I'd just like to thank David Putnam for having the wisdom to ask me to write it in the first place, Hugh Hudson for respecting me and my script, which is a very hard thing to find in our business, as you know, all the actors for getting fit enough to appear like Olympic athletes, and to British television, where I learned my craft. I'd like to finish with a word of warning. You may have started something. The British are coming.
Going Home, the main theme from Local Hero, the excellent Bill Forsyth film which he wrote and directed, featuring Burt Lancaster and Peter Riegert, and of course Fulton Mackay from BBC TV's sitcom Porridge. The music was all composed and performed by Dire Straits' Mark Knopfler. Local Hero tells a story of a small village which is the natural oil in it, attracting the hotshot executive from a Texas oil company, hoping to exploit the village by building a refinery there. But he's seduced by the villagers and things don't quite go to plan when his boss turns up to see how things are going.
We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom.
Pink Floyd's animated feature The Wall released a single, Another Brick in the Wall of course, which captured the attention of the British single buyers, hitting the top spot in the charts at the time, and promoted of course by a video taken directly from the film. Now the animation of course was all drawn by Gerald Scarfe. He also did the animation for the title sequence for Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, and it was part 2, the single release, which is on the Filmtracks CD set.
Little girls, this seems to say, never stop upon your way, never trust a stranger friend, no one knows how it will end. As you're pretty, so be wise, wolves may lurk in every guise. Now, as then, 'tis simple truth.
And then we have Company of Wolves, directed by Neil Jordan. Now this is a brilliant fantasy horror movie. The track they chose was The Message. It's a modern day telling of Red Riding Hood and werewolves as well. It stars Sarah Patterson and Angela Lansbury. Now there's a number of stories interspersed throughout the movie told by Angela Lansbury as the granny character. Music was composed by George Fenton, and that's a haunting score indeed. This is the main theme from Another Country. It starred Rupert Everett and a young Colin Firth, and of course equally young Cary Elwes. It's a story of public school boys and the particularly formative years, of course, of the homosexual spy Guy Burgess, played by Rupert Everett. He was a key figure in the Cambridge 5 spy ring of the 1930s and 40s. Now he eventually defected to Russia in 1951. Now the score itself is beautiful. It's composed by Michael Story and it's based on a stage play as well. The film is directed by Marek Kanewska. The Bostonians is based on the novel by Henry James. The film starred Christopher Reeve and Vanessa Redgrave. Now the music is by Richard Robbins. Olive Chancellor, a Back Bay Boston spinster and leader of the women's suffrage movement, becomes enamoured with a young woman, Verena Tarrant, an inspirational young speaker at the time, and adopts Verena as her protégée, her friend and her companion. Now, when Olive's distant relation, the chauvinistic southern lawyer Basil Ransom, falls in love with Verena and wishes to marry her to relegate the young woman to the kitchen and the nursery, as was the done thing at the time, Olive and Ransom find themselves competing for Verena's affections.
Would you dance with a stranger on a night made for love? Would you dance with a stranger neath the starlight above? And in the shadows, far away from the crowd, in one sweet moment, would a kiss be allowed?
This is the theme from Dance with a Stranger, called Would You Dance with a Stranger? The story of Ruth Ellis, the last woman to be hanged in Britain for the murder of David Blakely, played by Rupert Everett. The part of Ruth Ellis in the film was played by Miranda Richardson. Now the music score was composed by Richard Hartley, and the song of course is performed vocally by Mary Wilson, famous for her beehive hairdo. The director of the film was Mike Newell.
Seaway and skyway, got to be always on the move. Come December, will you remember whatever it is you're trying to prove?
The Chain title theme was sung vocally by Barbara Dixon, and it was a British comedy drama directed by Jack Gold and written, of course, by Jack Rosenthal, who wrote the BBC TV play for today, Bar Mitzvah Boy. Now, it told the story of 7 families, all in a removal chain. It starred a plethora of British actors, including Warren Mitchell, Dennis Lawson, Herbert Norville, Phyllis Logan, Billy Whitelaw, David Parfitt, Bernard Hill, David Troughton, Maurice Denham, Nigel Hawthorne and Anna Massey. What a cast! Amongst many others. Now, the incidental score was by Stanley Myers. Sadly, the film flopped at the box office. Starting off, CD2, we have Champions, starring John Hurt in a brilliant portrayal of Bob Champion, the British horse racing jockey who was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And of course, he recovered completely from that and went on to win the Grand National in 1981 on his horse Aldenite. It's got a beautiful score by Carl Davis, famous for his silent movie scores, of course, like Napoleon. Now, this film was directed by John Irwin. Now, incidentally, Bob Champion is still with us today. 74 he is. He was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire in 2021 for his services into cancer research. So there you go. This is a Cue the Bicycle Ride from Maurice Jarre's sumptuous score for David Lean's picture, his last film, A Passage to India, based on the classic Ian Forster novel starring Sir Alec Guinness, Victor Banerjee, Peggy Ashcroft and Judy Davis. Now, this is one of my favourite David Lean movies and it has a wonderful score. The cue the bicycle rides from early on in the movie when the central protagonist cycles through the streets of the city. It's fantastic. And I've since bought the entire soundtrack on CD as well, as I just love Maurice Jarre's music. These are the end titles from The Monastery from the film Heat and Dust. The production duo Merchant and Ivory brought many films to us, A Room with a View and also, of course, Hard's End. But this film was directed by James Ivory himself. It starred Julie Christie and Greta Scacchi with a screenplay by Ruth Power Javabla, and it was certainly during the early to mid-80s that I, as a young man, paid particular attention to British films and soaked up all the production information on them and also listened to the soundtrack music. Now, this film was nominated 8 times at the BAFTAs, but it ended up only winning Best Screenplay. And I always think that this echoes of Philip Glass here, as it mixes East and West together. The main theme from Another Time, Another Place. This film was set in Scotland during World War II and starred Phyllis Logan, who falls in love with a young prisoner of war, Luigi, played by Giovanni Moriello. He's taken in with 2 other prisoners of war in custody to work on their farm by her and her Scottish husband, played by Paul Young. Directed by Michael Radford, the music is by John McLeod. It's from 1983. The main theme from The Dream, from Return of the Soldier, again starring Julie Christie and Alan Bates. Now, it's a 1982 drama film and, incidentally, the first film to get a PG certificate in the UK from the BBFC, directed by Alan Bridges and with a music score by Richard Rodney Bennett. The multi-Oscar winning Gandhi from 1982 and the theme from it for All Mankind, written by Ravi Shankar and George Fenton. Now this is a superb score, encapsulating the wide story of Mahatma Gandhi depicted in the film in all its glory. The film of course was directed by Sir Richard Attenborough with a massive cast of American and US actors. It's an epic British film triumph as well, with a superb central performance from Ben Kingsley as Mahatma Gandhi. And of course in the Oscars, Best Picture the previous year had already gone to Chariots of Fire. And guess what? Gandhi took Best Picture the following year and Best Director for Attenborough, heralding an almost conquering arrival of British film in the US with major awards. Sadly, it was short-lived. But for a brief few years, we did dominate the international film stage. Attenborough was RADA and BAFTA president for many years and the supporter and mentor of many British directors and their work. This is The Long Road and it's a theme from Cal. It's from Irish director Pat O'Connor. It stars John Lynch and Helen Mirren and it's set in Belfast during the Troubles. It stars her and John Lynch, who is a young member of the Provisional IRA. He's picked as the driver during the murder of a member of the RUC, that's the Royal Ulster Constabulary, at his home in front of his father, who is also shot. Cal is then conflicted when he realises that a librarian he likes, Marcella, is the widow of that murder victim, and he has a dilemma on his hands. It's a great film, and the music of course for it, again, is by Mark Knopfler. Cal is from 1984. Joy from Comfort and Joy. This is a 1984 film with Bill Patterson and Claire Grogan from the pop group Altered Images. Alan Bird witnesses how an ice cream van is attacked and destroyed by an angry competitor, and this leads him to a struggle for control between two Italian families. Written and directed by Bill Forsyth, it's a score again by Mark Knopfler, and of course it's a comedy. Gregory's Girl with John Gordon Sinclair, again directed by Bill Forsyth and starring again Claire Grogan. Music is by Colin Tully and the film is from 1980.
My God, it's the concert for Cascara.
You've invaded our homes and our privacy, taken everything except the sun and the sea. We've come here to ask you most humbly, please won't you grant us our liberty? We want our freedom. Whoa, whoa. Give us our freedom. Whoa, whoa. We want our freedom. Whoa, whoa. Give us our freedom. Whoa, whoa.
We are
scratch with our hands now to keep our babies fed. You bring in your soldiers with a gun at our head. The way things are going, we'd be better off dead.
We want our freedom.
Now we've got a little known one here called Water, a film starring Michael Caine and Billy Connolly. It tells the story of finding rare eau de table on a remote Caribbean island called Cascara. Now the water has properties to keep you regular, and it's sought after by governments and water companies alike. Now the film was scripted by Dick Clement and Nina Fernay of Porridge fame, and of course directed by Dick Clement. The title theme for the film, Freedom, is sung by Billy Connolly, but he has a fantastic backing up band, consisting of George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Eric Clapton and Eddie Grant, among others. And on side 2 of the soundtrack of the movie itself, we have Eddie Grant singing his debut hit, Living on the Front Line. The score was composed by Grant, Mike Moran, Eric Clapton and George Harrison. Now the film was produced by George Harrison's production company, but it was a complete box office flop. And if you recognise Mike Moran, that's because he'd previously teamed up with Lindsay DePaul to give us the 1977 UK Eurovision entry, Rock Bottom. And that, of course, was runner-up to the French winner, Marie Myriam, with Oiseau et l'Enfant. Now, Eurovision is a whole new video in itself, and I don't think I'll go there. Finally, Monty Python, of course, and their brilliant Life of Brian. And the song from it, of course, everybody knows and knows the words to, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. The film was financed by George Harrison's production company, Handmade Films, and this film caused much controversy amongst British clergy with a very famous argument scene with Cleese and Palin and various luminaries of the day. Everyone knows the song really well. Now, this particular album, I got it off an eBay dealer a few months ago, and it might not play on some computers and laptops with a DV drive because, unfortunately, of the way it reads the disc, it's authored in a strange way, but it's okay in a CD and DVD player. Now, quite a few of these queues had full film soundtrack album releases, but some of them, like Champions Return of the Soldier, Another Time, Another Place, are really rare. Now, this may have whetted your appetite. If it has, it's selling now on Amazon. There's only one copy left though, and it's from a reseller, momox.co.uk. Their name's on the screen below. It's £16.72. I put the Amazon link in the description. It's the last copy, as I say, and there's also a cassette if you're interested in cassette for your car. £19.99 though, but it's really rare now, this album. And another thing I've been searching for as well is a double CD of Undermilk Wood, recorded some time ago. It had music and a host of British actors on it. Can't find that one anywhere on CD, unfortunately. But I did listen to that quite a lot. So there you have it. It's a bit of a trip down memory lane, and I'm just showing you how diverse British film music was, even through a 5-year period in the 80s, and the music scores were fantastic. I hope you find this video interesting. If you like this video, please comment, as I was thinking of looking at a few more of my soundtrack scores, some of them quite interesting. But until next time, from me, it's goodbye, and above all, this time, good listening.
Record's available in the 40s.